Like with Houston and Hogan, I'm Randy Houston.
And this is Dave Hogan, and we're happy to welcome Arthur Rice back on this portion of our podcast. And Arthur was a lead singer for the Kingdom Heirs for many years, over 27 years, at Dollywood. And on our last podcast, we said we want to talk about what it's like to work at Dollywood with Arthur and any experiences that you had with Dolly, any programs you did with Dolly. Seems to me like the first time I saw you guys at Dollywood, you were outside.
Yes, when I started in '95, we were outside most of the year until Christmas, and then we moved inside. And for the first 2 years that I was there, we worked outside in the summer, which we loved. We had a great theater, it's the Valley Theater, and it was kind of between roller coasters. And so what I loved about it was, you would see people walking by the theater, and they would kind of hear the music at the beginning, and they would kind of turn their head, and you could see them as they're continuing to walk. They would just keep watching and listening, and then you'd see them. They get by the theater, and then all of a sudden they would come back to the theater, and they would stand there and listen to the program. Man. So it was a great, by the start of the program, our venue seated probably 250 people maybe, and then by the end of our program, they would be 20 people deep standing around listening. Man. So it was a great opportunity to show off our music, and because there's a lot of people that really don't know what Southern gospel music is. Their only reference for gospel music is maybe what they sing in church on Sunday.
And when you moved inside, how many people would the auditorium accommodate?
We moved into the Show Street Palace on my third year, and for Christmas, and our theater seat 1,000 people.
Oh boy!
And you did 4 shows a day.
We did 3 and 4 shows a day. We sure did.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's a hard job.
It is.
That's hard work.
It is.
Have you
really
ever
is.
sat down and figured up a rough estimate of how many people that you have sung for at Dollywood?
That one of the managers, my last day there, one of the managers kind of did a rough estimate for me, and she said over the 27 and a half years that I was there, we have sung to a little over 2.5 million people.
Wow!
Oh my!
And we could never reach that amount of people on the road. There's
no way.
Absolutely no way.
And a lot of people, like you mentioned, were not familiar with, perhaps not familiar with Southern gospel music until they went to Dollywood and heard you guys.
Yeah. And our theater was right next door to the Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame and Museum. So they would come right out of our theater and would be directed kind of right toward the museum. And so they got not only did they get to hear the music, they got to go next door and kind of go through the history of our music and how it started and up until that time. And so it was a wonderful opportunity not only to spread our music, but the message of Jesus Christ and what it's in.
Well, I have a friend who is a Christian, but in the faith tradition that he grew up in, Episcopalian, he was not familiar with the Southern gospel music that you and I grew up with, and Randy. But he went to Dollywood and he heard the Kingdom Heirs plus the Bill Gaither videos that he watched on TV, became a huge Southern gospel music fan.
Yeah.
And I don't mind telling you that's Carl Swan, my former co-host when I did talk radio on WJCW.
Okay.
Carl's an Episcopalian who loves Southern gospel music.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in his church, he did not hear that kind of music growing up.
We had a very broad audience because of that. They would just come. They just came to Dollywood just a theme park. And because we were a show there at Dollywood. A lot of times, they especially as they get older, the kids are out running around. Well, the adults are like, I'm going to find somewhere cool and dark so that I can sit down. And so, so we picked up a lot of that, and then Dollywood was closed January, February, March, and so we traveled during those months, and so that opened a lot of doors for us to go into a lot of different churches that we would have never gotten.
You did a
we did some stuff at
wonderful
Episcopal
concert
churches.
that I remember at Central United Methodist
Yes.
Church in downtown Asheville.
Yes.
It was a great concert
Yeah.
that night. I was there,
Yeah.
my wife and I. By the way, one of your signature song is How Great Thou Art. Anybody ever time you on how long you would hold that note when you sang How Great Thou Art?
Let me tell you how that all started. That started with Jim Hamill. When I was with the Kingsmen, we were doing we were doing that song and to end a lot of the programs and stuff. And so he would let me sing the second. He would do the first verse, and then he would let me sing the second verse. And so we got to that note one day, it just kind of happened out of the blue. I just kind of held the note a little longer, and it tickled him. And so the next night we did it, I held it a little bit longer, and then it became a thing of he would, trying to egg me on to hold it a little bit longer. And so that's kind of how that became. We had a steel guitar player by the name of Gary Dillard that lived here in Asheville for so many years. Gary's passed on now, but he would time me every once in a while, and there was a couple of times that he timed it like over a minute.
Oh wow!
So I can't do it anymore, but I'm too old for that. But that was a fun time.
Isn't the internet wonderful? Because you can discover what we're talking about
Yes.
by just Googling Arthur Rice, How Great Thou Art.
Yeah.
And it'll pop right up, and you can listen to Arthur hold that note on a particular part of How Great Thou Art.
Yeah, I credit that to my voice teacher. People always ask me, what my history is and how I kind of learned to sing and that sort of thing. My mom, when I was 14 years old, she found a voice teacher here in town called Julian Brookshire, and he kind of he'd moved from New York. He was a graduate of Juilliard, and he moved from New York, came down here, and this was his home. And he taught voice, and I started when I was 14. My mom took me every week until I was old enough to drive myself. And then I took 7 years of voice.
Wow.
Yeah, so by the time I was, 18, 19 years old, it was kind of second nature to me. And so, but he kind of helped us with breath control, and so I always credit that to him. If it hadn't been for him helping me with that, there's no way we could have done it. But.
Breath control. I'm still on the air every day at WHKP in Hendersonville, and I am on the air a lot, and I talk a lot, and breath control is something that I still work on every single day.
Absolutely.
Where do you breathe? How much do you breathe? What that never ends.
Yeah.
Everybody has a boss.
You asked me about Dolly. Yes.
Yeah. Well, before we talk about your experiences recording or doing shows with Dolly, who is your immediate boss there at Dollywood with the Kingdom Heirs?
Well, really, it would have been Dolly. I mean,
Okay.
we had some some managers and that sort of thing that kind of facilitated our programming and our schedule and that sort of thing. But ultimately, it came down to Dolly. I mean, Dolly was the reason that gospel music was at the park.
The French brothers, is that right?
Yes, Stephen
Started
the
the
quartet.
Kingdom Heirs. They're natives of Sevier County.
They are, yes.
And
They started, the group actually started, it was Silver Dollar City. The Hersham brothers owned Silver Dollar City from Missouri, and they owned the park, and they would have, every year they would have, it's called a Young Christians Weekend. And so one of the managers saw the Kingdom Heirs. They were just a local group there in the area, saw them sing somewhere and invited them to come and sing at the park for that weekend. And then after a couple of years, they really liked them, kind of wanted to have something so they asked them to come and work at the park. And that's when it just kind of, it was right before it transitioned to Dollywood. And they would come and they would sing 2 months out of the year, June and July, and the hottest part of the year, on the back of a flatbed truck, and they would do 6, 7, 8 shows a day.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy. And so then when the park transitioned to Dollywood, Dolly herself wanted gospel music at her park. I mean, it was such a part of her a life that she wanted that to be there. So she made sure that the quartet was there. And so at that time, the park was only open about 6 months out of the year. We're closed in the winter, so they would work half the year there and half the year on the road. And then that kind of grew, and the park kind of grew, and that sort of thing. Once I started it in 95, we did several shows with Dolly. We did a couple of TV programs, 2 or 3 programs outside, and did a couple of albums with her. And I'm telling you, she is, what you see is what you get. She is one of the nicest, hardest working artists I've ever met. I mean, she is just super to work with, and just a lot of fun to be around. She was a lot of fun. Her
talent is, I ran across a song and played it on the air the other day, and it's the song, the old standard, Save the Last Dance for Me. Mm-hmm. You can dance, every dance with, and the version that Dolly did of that old song, totally different from any version you've ever heard of that song. I heard a podcast the other day that delved into Jolene. Yeah. And the Gregorian chant on the guitar that she starts that song with. And it creates a quandary in your mind of back and forth, pacing back and forth. This girl is after my man, and what am I going to do? She's a genius.
She really is. She really is a genius. And a lot of artists depend on either the producers or the musicians when they go into the studio and record the track to the album, the soundtrack to the albums, and of the arrangement and the creation of that music. A lot of artists have to kind of depend on. I'm telling you, Dolly does everything.
She's got
it. It's all in her head. We did an album with her called Halos and Horns.
Oh, I'm familiar with it.
And sang on several of those songs. And we came in and did the first song, and we were just supposed to sing one chorus on one song. We came in to record that one song. We ended up singing on the whole song, and then she actually rearranged 3 of the other songs so that we could be a part of it. And it was like, it was right on the spot. I mean, she really kind of already had all that lined up, and she just changed it right in the middle of the street.
She is incredible.
She really is. But she was great to work with. She's a great person.
I remember Dolly and Porter being on one of the shows I promoted at what's now the Civic Center, or I guess the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. And that was my first introduction to Dolly Parton on a personal basis. Mm-hmm. And I could tell then that she was a genuine human being, and a pleasure to be around.
Yes.
Unfortunately, other than one other time, I guess, I never had an opportunity to be around Dolly except doing an interview. But Dolly did give me, and a bunch of other disc jockeys, a 20-year pass on the 20th anniversary of Dollywood, and it runs out next year.
Oh, wow.
Really? I've got one more year to use that 20-year pass that Dolly passed along to a group of us down at Dollywood at the 20th anniversary.
Well, you brought up a special topic about Dolly there, and you mentioned the word giving. Giving. That is another phase of Dolly. We talk about the musical genius and the promotional genius that she is, but we have to talk about her philanthropy.
Oh, my goodness.
It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And she is so giving back to her community and back to her town. That was one of the driving forces of her being a part of Dollywood and being involved in that, was to allow a place for her people to work. Employment, absolutely. And so much as she's given so much back to the city of Sevierville and Pigeon Forge and that whole area. She really has a heart for people, and she really has a heart for her home people. She has provided for them, and the
book club
that she does. She gives out to
the
all
Imagination
the kids.
Library.
Thank you, Dave.
And that started just in Sevier County. That was because it was such a poor county when she grew up, that so many children grew up without having to be able to read or have access to books to be able to read and to learn. And that's how that started. It started in that area and has grown all over the world. I mean, it's amazing. It's become an entity of itself.
And the fires, she just gave money to people.
Yes.
She just gave money to people whose homes were burned up in that forest fire.
Yeah.
And when COVID struck, she was Johnny on the spot at Vanderbilt Hospital with money to find
$1 million, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. Money.
She donated to the medical center at Vanderbilt.
Well, even when COVID hit, everything was shut down, and then Dollywood actually opened. We opened at the end of June. We were one of the only things that were open because so much stuff was outside.
Gotcha.
So we went back to work the end of June in 2020 and went back outside, kind of full circle, went back outside to the old theater that we were at, and it was great. I mean, we were one of the only working artists in the world actually working.
Yeah.
And so it was such a great. It gave the people in the county that worked there a job, a place to work, a place to earn their living,
which was needed,
greatly needed. And so
this sounds trivial, but if you're a DJ like Randy and me, you like trivia. Most every time I've been to Pigeon Forge, Dollywood, I get stuck in a traffic jam. What's it like having to drive to work from wherever you live to Dollywood every day?
The wonderful thing about that area is there's a lot of back roads. And you learn those back roads very quickly.
I bet.
You draw some out before you leave, Arthur, so we'll know those back roads.
People ask
next
you all
time
the
we
time.
go to Dollywood.
Said, what do you do? How do you get around in Pigeon Forge? You just don't go to Pigeon Forge unless you have to. And then if you especially in the summertime, and then if you're going, you just know what it's going to be, and you just kind of set your mind to what it's going to be.
You're a big listener to podcasts.
Yes.
And you're in them traffic jams listening to podcasts. That's what's going on.
That's right.
Speaking of, let's plug another podcast that you are involved with, Arthur.
Yes, we started this podcast back 2019, I guess there was something like that. It's called Southern Gospel News Podcast.
Okay.
You can look that up, and the Lord has kind of blessed that. We it's kind of like this format. We just kind of sit and talk, and we talk to artists, and we've done probably 150 programs or something like that, I think. And so you can look that up, Southern Gospel News Podcast. And
fantastic.
And, I love listening to that. And like this show, we really don't have a format for it. We just start talking, and like we're sitting on the porch and just talking about whatever comes up.
We're about out of time. Yeah.
At some point, you became, in addition to being the lead singer of the Kingdom Heirs, the front man or the MC. How did that come about?
Well, Steve French was one of the founding members. He and his brother Chris. Steve passed away in 2016, and so that kind of opened up a void there. Steve did all the talking. He was the MC of the group, so that kind of opened up a void for the front line. And his brother Chris played bass guitar. So when we hired a baritone singer, we thought, well, we're going to have somebody to talk. So that kind of transitioned into that, and it was something I really never. Jim Hamill was the best MC. He and George Yance and There's been Jerry Goff. There's been a few, and to fall into that area, it was difficult, but I enjoyed it after a while. I kind of enjoyed it.
What are now that you're at Trinity Baptist Church as minister of music, what are the responsibilities of a minister of music at a rather large church like Trinity?
Well, I came in, and we still have a choir. A lot of churches don't have a choir. It had kind of dwindled down, and so
it's a pretty large choir.
It is. We have about 110, 20 members, something like that. And so I love arranging. I love parts, and so when I came in, it was I love working with people, teaching them parts and teaching their arrangements and that sort of thing. And so when I came in, kind of we started building the choir back up, and so I do that and lead the congregational music, that sort of thing, and then we do some different events out. Of course, Brother Ralph Jr. Is known for his tent ministry, and he's kind of starting that back up this fall, and we.
Doesn't Trinity have a gospel concert series during the summer months at some point?
No, they did it one time. That kind of like I said, COVID kind of changed the whole world, and that sort of thing. Kind of got out of it and kind of got out back. But we have a huge history. Squire Parsons was a member there. Ernie Phillips was a member there. Mark Trammell, who is with Mark Trammell Quartet now, used to be with the Cathedrals. He was a member there. There's so many artists that kind of came out of that church. Of course, the Primitive Quartet are big. We love the old Primitive Quartet and love the guys. And we have a great service. We do one service on Sunday, but we do two services on Wednesday. We have a service Wednesday morning called Heritage Keepers at 10 o'clock, and that's kind of what it is. It's kind of more of a, our generation. They get to come in and, we do some older stuff and do the old hymns and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a way to keep that alive, the heritage alive.
Good. I love congregational singing, and when I need a lift, when I need to be, if I just need, I don't need caffeine. Don't need anything to drink, anything to smoke. I don't need to take a pill. I just pull up one of Gerald Wolfe's
hymn sing,
congregational hymn sing on the internet. In about 10 minutes of that, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely.
So I look forward to coming over to Trinity at some point.
Yeah.
I live at Lake Junaluska now, not too far away, and sometime when you're going to have a good congregational hymn sing, let me know.
I'll do that. I sure will.
Arthur, I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it is to meet you and to talk with you on our Hot Mic with Houston and Hogan program. I thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. You got a lot of irons in the fire, and we appreciate so much you coming to talk with us today.
Well, I thank you for letting me be a part of it. It was such an honor. The old saying is, don't meet your heroes. You guys, I love you. Seriously, you guys were my heroes growing up, and such a part of my life. And I just want to thank you for that. I can't convey the love in my heart for you guys and the work that you have done, and so I believe I speak for a lot of people.
Thank you.
That a lot of times you don't see that sitting in a room by yourself behind a microphone.
That's
how
true.
You touch people,
and
so I just want to give those flowers while you're still alive. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate how God has used you guys over the years, and to be such a ministry to people, and it really has been. You've touched a lot of lives.
Thank you, Arthur. Yes. And we were talking about the English character on the Andy Griffith Show. I follow his name. It's Malcolm.
Malcolm.
His name was Malcolm.
Right.
Malcolm.
And Malcolm always said, "Aren't you nice?" Arthur, we appreciate you. You are nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great week.
Be sure to click the subscribe button for another episode of Hot Mic with Randy Houston and Dave Hogan.